Hello, my name is Beverly Abel, and I'm with the City of Mesquite Economic Development Department. I'm here today with Rick French, the Director of Human Resources and Civil Service with the City of Mesquite. And Rick's here to offer us his expertise on resume writing. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Rick, with many years behind you of reviewing and evaluating and helping individuals with job resumes and applications, what do you consider some of the basics that people just can't miss?
There's one thing and one thing only about resumes and job applications that every person seeking employment should understand. And I think that they need to understand that as they begin the resume and application process.
Well, that would be to get a job, right?
That's a little premature.
Okay.
There's only one purpose in writing a resume, and that is to get an interview. You want to make your resume stand out so that those hiring managers out there will want to interview you in person. So your resume needs to stand out from all the many applications that the hiring managers get so that they will want to bring you in for a personal interview.
I've never thought about it that way, but it absolutely makes sense. So what are some of those other basics that you've discovered over the years as you've been working with job applicants?
There are some absolute basics involved in this. If you're applying for a job, make sure you understand what the minimum qualifications for the job. If you don't meet those minimum requirements, the chances are stacked against you for getting that job if you don't meet those minimum requirements. Try to limit your resume to one page. Hiring managers are busy. They don't want to read a 4-page epistle. They want to look at something that is neat and clean and that they can look at very quickly. If at all possible, make your resume visually appealing, not too busy, not too cluttered looking. Have it look very neat and clean. And please make sure that you check your vocabulary, your spelling, your grammar. That is super important. When I'm looking at a resume of somebody applying for a job and I see typos or grammatical errors, it's just a natural turnoff. Those are the type things that we look for because we want you to put the effort into your resume. That's an indication of what kind of effort you'll put forward. You also want to make sure that the resume and job application is accurate and complete, listing all your former employers and their contact information. Try to alleviate any gaps in your employment history.
You know, all those are really great points, but can you elaborate on what you mean by gaps?
Nothing frustrates a hiring manager or an HR director more than if you're looking through a job application or resume and all of a sudden you're going along looking at an individual's employment history, and suddenly there's 2 years missing. Well, if you leave that to the hiring manager's own interpretation or to what they may think happened, that may not be to your advantage. Personally, I think you should address it up front. For instance, if you took off 2 years to have a child, if you took off 2 years to take care of a parent who was disabled, in fact, if you had to take off 2 years to handle some legal issues, regardless of the reason you took off, if you volunteer that information up front, handle it up front, it will eliminate those question marks in the minds of the people who are looking at your resume.
People will tend to fill in the gaps where they exist, and if you fill in the gaps for them, that saves a lot of guesswork.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
So what are some other resume tips you can offer us?
When people are filling out their resume or a job application, they want to be all things to all people. They want a job, and I get that. But you should never embellish or mislead someone on an application. And I'll give you a true-to-life example without naming any names, obviously. But we had an applicant recently that we were so interested in hiring, and this particular individual indicated on his application one of our minimum qualifications for the job, which was that he needed a commercial driver's license. He indicated on the application he had one. We went through the interview process, confirmed with him that he had it, but when it came time to actually offer him the job, he admitted he did not have it.
Oh no.
So consequently, what happened is he spent a lot of his time going through the motions. We went through a lot of time, a lot of expense, trying to check him out, trying to hire the right person, only to find out that we could not hire him because he didn't meet the minimum qualifications. I'd also say don't dwell on task. If you are applying for a job that requires that you drive a truck, in your previous experience, don't just put down that I drove a truck. Put down how you had no accidents while operating the vehicle. Put down how that you met delivery schedules. Put down how that you helped make achievements that were the benefit of your employer. So don't just dwell on tasks, dwell on achievements and what you did that set you apart from other people who were also truck drivers.
So qualities rather than just a list.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
I also am a big fan of a cover letter. I mentioned earlier that limit your resume to one page if at all possible. Well, if you do a cover letter, that makes doing that one-page resume so much easier. You can tell your story a little bit in the cover letter. You can show how engaged you are, show some of your achievements in that cover letter, so that consequently, your resume, it's easier to keep it more brief and concise in a one-page document. I also don't believe in putting on your application that references will be provided upon request. I have seen so many resumes and applications in my life, tens of thousands of them, that people think that it's important to put on there that references will be provided if requested. Everybody knows that if an employer, a prospective employer, wants references, they will ask you for them.
You're giving up real estate when you say
You're
that.
giving up real
I
estate,
got
that
it.
precious space that you want to do.
I got it.
The last thing maybe is a little bit different that folks wouldn't think of, and that is I would never put my home address on a resume.
That is it. And why is that?
The reason I wouldn't put my home address on a resume is, first of all, your cell phone number and your email address is plenty for them to get in touch with you. Secondly, don't let somebody looking at an application think, oh my goodness, this individual lives on the other side of town. They're not going to want to commute 45 minutes each way, twice a day to come to work for us. Whether that's true or not, let that be your decision. There are many people who are willing to drive an hour each way daily in order to get to a job that they desire. Why let a hiring manager have a negative thought enter their mind concerning the fact of where you live and how that might be a deterrent to you getting to job on time?
You know, I would never have thought about that, but it makes complete sense. It's taking away one more excuse to discount you, one more reason to discount you. That makes total sense. Well, Rick, as we wrap up this interview, I want to know, are there any other recommendations you would have for folks who are looking for jobs?
I think one of the things about getting a job, I happen to be one of those people who love to interview personally. And it's not about talking about myself, but what I like to do is try to understand the needs of the employer and how I fit those needs, and how my resume and how my application meet those needs of the employer. I would encourage people to apply anywhere and everywhere that they see a job for which they meet the minimum qualifications. When you get that phone call and you know you're going to get that interview, dress the part. I'm not saying you have to wear a designer suit. Please don't get me wrong. I am not saying that at all. But we can all show up with our clothes neat, clean, pressed, whatever. So please dress the part. Another thing that I have a personal problem with is for applicants who come in and that do not maintain a good eye contact. I love people to maintain good eye contact, have an attentive posture, that they're interested in the job, that they want the job. And so consequently, I think those are two very important nonverbal things that you can do to help be successful in getting a job. I also encourage people to memorize their resume. And that may sound odd also, but if you're having to go through an interview and relate some of the things that was on your resume or your job application, you want to be consistent. You don't want to say one thing that is different from something that you wrote down. And so that you're not nervous, memorize that information that you put down. I think you should sincerely thank the person who interviews you, and you should follow that up with a note, an email, or some form of appreciation showing that hiring manager that you appreciated their time. Those are the type things that will set you apart when they get to the point of making the decision who they want to make that contingent job offer to. And remember, nowadays, everybody gives contingent job offers. It's not a sure thing until you have a pretty thorough background check. You're going to likely get a drug test. And they're going to probably check to see your employment history and see how you did with your former employers. So if there was a problem in those areas, just be upfront, tell them about it, explain your position, let them hear your side of the story rather than trying to decide for themselves what may or may not have happened. But for the most part, be confident, and best of luck to anyone that's applying for a job.
Rick, you have offered some rock solid advice, and from a person who does this every day, all day, and has great expertise. And so thank you so much for the insight. I've learned things today, and I'm sure the people watching this have learned too. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you all for spending your time with us and learning a little more about how to write a resume and some interview tips. We hope that this helps you be successful in your search for a job. And know that you can always go to roadmaptoresources.com and be able to see information for job seekers as well as for small businesses who are coping with the current crisis that our nation is in. Again, it's roadmaptoresources.com, and you can email us also at economicdevelopment@cityofmesquite.com. Thank you for your time.